I am the queen of enjoying every moment, never wanting something good to come to an end, and a late checkout is the embodiment of that. I'm your host, Laura Janella.
All right, let's roll, baby. Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay. Starting this episode by fully apologizing to everyone for how I sound. My son got me sick again for the third time this month. So I sound very manly, very masculine, not very demure. But I am here with one of my besties, Miss Chelsea Matz, who I met in Zurich.
Mm-hmm.
Our relationship blossomed there. The seeds were planted. The flower bloomed. We evolved into besties. She now lives in Colorado in Boulder, and we are having a really great time doing a 48-hour girls trip getaway in New York City. And we're actually staying in Chelsea.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in Chelsea with Chelsea, who was named after this neighborhood, which I loved knowing that. But
Inside Hotel Chelsea.
Inside Hotel Chelsea. We're reporting right here from our room, robing it up.
Sorry, everyone.
But welcome. Very happy to have you on Late Checkout.
Thank you. Happy to be here in this luxurious studio where you record.
This is my go-to. Oh, this is very chic. This is very this is setting the bar high.
Yes, definitely. And also feels very us because we had so many couch days and couch chats. So if I feel at home,
I feel like this is the only way you and I can get the most comfortable talking on the pod because of that history.
Totally.
I remember when we visited you guys in Colorado last year, and you and I designated an hour just to go to your basement to couch rot and catch up, because that's what we needed to recharge our friendship batteries. We're husbands, stay upstairs. We're going downstairs. Don't bother us. But as my guest, I need to ask you two questions. With my first guest, I'm starting a little ritual, so I want our listeners to get to know you a little bit from a woo-woo level. So can you share your astrological sun sign with us, please?
I am an Aquarian.
We love an
Loud
Aquarius.
And proud.
We love an Aquarius. Me being a fire sign, I feel like with your air, it was a very organic mix from the beginning. I love that you are somebody who I can just talk to endlessly about literally everything and anything, like relationship dynamics, woo-woo stuff, like human design, astrology, family life, historical crap. Also, since we both moved to Zurich at the same year, obviously unplanned, but you're one of the few people who understand what that transition was like, what that move was like. And particularly being the person who wasn't transferred from a workplace to be there, that transition from going from a full-time worker to then all of a sudden not being able to work for a little bit and finding creative outlets. You were somebody that was huge in that for me in Zurich.
No, that's really true because we were full-blown housewives.
We were.
Yes.
We had a group chat called RHOZ.
Yes.
With other girls.
Which rip.
Yes.
We don't need to get into that, but rip
Crumbled.
to that group.
I feel like we had a really great group of girls who understood that transition in a way that no one else really could, because we all came with really professional backgrounds, having worked for a long time in whatever industries we were in, and then all of a sudden we were ladies who lunch, which sounds glamorous and sounds great, which it definitely has its perks, but it comes with a lot of identity crisis. What do I even like to do? Who am I? And that kind of stuff.
Definitely. It looks luxurious from the outside and like a dream, which part of it is. But I also think it's a really good exercise for your identity, like you said, because when you don't have work to identify with and have a certain time block of where you need to be every day and something that you're doing every day, you're forced to fill those spaces with something stimulating and meaningful. And it's a time for self discovery of finding out who you are outside of any labels you can lean on.
No, for sure.
And that I do think just opens up the creativity portal to, and once you feel like you've settled in somewhere that's completely foreign and you've made friends and you're assimilating and you're, learning the language, it's like, oh, if I can do all of those things, what else can I do? And what else am I capable of if I can do this one thing that I once thought was so scary, living in a different country? And or at least that's how opening up the creativity world was for me. I'm like, oh, what else could I be doing that I once thought was so challenging? Or
Right, like what else can I tap into that I haven't put any focus on or like highlighted? That's a really good point. I never looked at it that way in terms of like even just using the ability to getting yourself acclimated to a new place and seeing that as like a gift or talent or ability or skill set to then feel like you can jump from there and do other things. I like that you said that.
Yes, I feel that completely. And it's a bigger scale when you do it abroad, but I think every time you move somewhere new, it's an opportunity to discover a different version of yourself because other people don't know your previous versions of you.
It's very true.
And it's like a clean slate you're given to paint. It sounds so cheesy, but it's really true.
It's true. But also I think like the age that we were, because for somehow all 5 of us had moved to Zurich the same year, not knowing each other. All of us from the States, different parts of the States, and all of us also around the same age. I think we were all born 88, 87, which I thought that was also extremely strange. So we had a good 11 or 12 years of like professional work under our belts. So like having that, like you said, like that new thing, that new slate, it also like, at least for me going to Zurich, it didn't feel like I was planning to do that when I got there. It just kind of came with the territory. And I think all of us were figuring it out as we were going.
Completely. Yes.
But,
yes.
Sorry it took so long to get to that point. My pregnancy brain, my jet lag, it is not good. It is not good, people.
And you're cold.
But I'm very happy that we're jumping into like these topics, but this topic in particular, because I feel like that's where a lot of our bond started.
The first time I hung out with you, we were playing double dominoes, where we were playing the game dominoes while eating Domino's pizza.
Genius idea, by the way. I loved that. I loved it.
And it was you and Brian. And I was sitting next. I remember even where everyone was sitting.
Me too.
At the table.
Me too.
And I was across from you, and Brian was adjacent to me.
Yes.
Spencer was to my left.
Yeah, he was sitting across from Brian. Like we were like this, and they were like, okay, yeah.
Yes. And there was some like early 2000s hip hop playing somewhere in the background. And I just remember you and Brian's banter between each other and your jokes, and me being like, I know I want to be friends with this person. And I remember telling Spencer that after, but I think that it was a longer time before we got to be close friends.
It was a little bit. Yeah.
We were like hanging out with other people in the group a bit more. And then I remember you like explicitly invited me to do something that made it clear that it was like explicitly just you and I.
Yeah. Like, don't invite anybody else. Like, this is a one-on-one. We need to hang out. What did we do?
I remember being on a tram.
Oh, did we shop a little bit or something?
Yeah.
Okay. I kind of remember that. Yeah.
I just remember being in a tram and like chatting and talking about like the friend group dynamics, which is like, I feel a level of friendship that you kind of like break into at some point when you're in a group of friends, where at some point you're like, I'm going to see how comfortable this person is with breaking the fourth wall about the group friendship and like talking about individual dynamics at play. And I remember either you stepped in or I stepped in first.
We were like putting our toes in, like, let's just test the waters here. Like,
we both were down, and then from there it was like more.
I feel like you need that because within a group of girls, I think everyone is like, breaking down like the dynamics and analyzing each other and stuff like that. So like to have someone in it to just like bounce that thought off of or whatever, I think is healthy.
Doesn't have to be nasty. It's just like
No.
reality checking. Like, oh, is this your experience with this person? Or have you noticed like these two people? Like,
especially because we all like essentially met each other within the same like 6-month time frame. It's not like any of us had like longer history with one another than the other. Like there was no like necessarily any like loyalty of like, no, this is my bestie. It's like we were all brand new. We were all just trying to make friends. We were all just and
that's a good point, because I think one of the hardest parts about making friends when you're older is you don't have these built-in ways like you did when you were younger to make friends, like being in classes together, like college, or being in a training program with your colleagues and that sort of thing. And I think moving abroad and having at the time you weren't involved in our husband's work network, but just for context, like the network provided a network for the spouses to me. And then I think being an expat and being in that unique experience where you're just like clinging on to like, oh, how can I make a circle here? That was like another built-in reason to have buy-in and meet people, and you get closer with people quicker when you're in an environment like that.
Yeah. It becomes a trusted source. And I do want to share that with the listeners, is that your husband's at the time were working at Google, and Google in Zürich, specifically that location, has a platform for all the spouses that have, or I guess just all the spouses, period. But I know that it's utilized a lot by the expats who move in.
Yes.
And it's just a place where you can kind of like send a message like, oh, looking for friends who like to go for hikes, or looking for a cleaning lady, or looking to learn German. Does somebody want to learn German with me? Like, do you want to grab coffee once a week? And it's like such a great place to have like a safety net of a go-to if you're nervous socially to go out to like these like bigger meetups where you have to like insert yourself by yourself. Brian wasn't working at Google at the time, and I loved that you guys had that. Like, I thought that was so cool. Like, that was really so special.
Cool. It's so cool. And I hear that it's unique to the Zurich location, and that could be because culturally it's in Zurich, it's much more of a challenge to break into the local scene there and have locals embrace you. And I think Google took note of that and was like, we need to provide a lifeline for the spouses in order to keep our employees happy here and to retain good hires. But I'm like, oh man, something like that would be great for so many people in so many different places.
Yeah, I'm surprised it didn't exist in other locations too, because it's just anywhere could be more nerve-wracking. Like even anywhere when you're in a new place. Yeah, and especially with like remote work and people like not being, I don't know, just like out and about as much. I don't know, when I was working in New York, like pre-pandemic, I felt like you went to happy hour and you weren't just like talking to your coworkers, you were like seeing other people at the bar and talking and like meeting people. And I don't know, just different times now. But
because I have moved a lot since college, different places, and I've had experiences where I moved and I sort of dragged my feet on pushing myself into new experiences or meeting new people. I had times where I waited and I had times where I threw myself in, and it was always to my benefit when I immediately threw myself in or like put myself out there, because like that's when I had the balls to do so, was in the beginning. And then everything just feels like fresh and possibilities. And then when you're there, it's just there's a like tipping point where you've waited too long, where you're just like comfortable and you're not as willing to put yourself out there. So I was proud of myself with Zurich because I do think as soon as I got there, I was like, I need to just like throw myself into some things like that. And then I joke our friend Kate also in Zurich, I basically had a blind date with her meeting up.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we met at a bar and it really was like a friend blind date. Just actually how really like the first original link, shout out to Kate.
Yeah,
for
no,
us all meeting.
No, it's true. And I'm happy we're on the topic of like making friends in Zurich, because when I first, something Brian and I didn't cover in our pod with Switzerland was we didn't cover like friend making yet. And I do want to get into that like eventually in a future pod with him. But when we first moved there, because we were only going to be there for 9 months, like I had zero intention of finding people. I did not care to meet. Like I cared to meet people like socially, like if we were out and people were talking to us, or we had one friend there that had moved from New York already, and then Brian had his coworkers. Like we felt like that was enough, like those happy hours, those whatever. But we weren't like, oh, we don't want to make like these like ties and these like deep friendships, like we're not going to be here for that long, like we're just going to go. So I don't think I met any of you until like 3 or 4 months into me actually living in Zurich. And our friend Kate, the one you went on the blind date with, she happened to be like, when we were in the corporate housing, she was like directly my next door neighbor. Like our door was here and her door was there in the apartment building. And I had seen her a million times, like never. I was just very New York about things. I wouldn't really say hi to people, like I kept my head down, like minded my own business. I didn't care.
Wearing all black.
Yes, exactly. Like avoiding the eye contact. And I feel like Kate is so friendly that she was probably like looking to say hi to me, and I'm just like, no. But she had this adorable dog, and I'll never forget, I think it was like the beginning of September, and I bumped into, like, there was no avoiding this like encounter. Like I came out of my apartment and her dog were going into her apartment, and I'm a sucker for a cute puppy and a cute dog. And we started talking, and we had all these like really crazy synchronicities. Like both of our husbands were named Brian.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and
it was freaky.
it was really freaky. And then her wedding anniversary was the same as my wedding anniversary, like the date and the year. Like we both got married September 21st, 2018. Okay, that's weird. Like,
so weird.
and then later that day, like we exchanged phone numbers, and then later that day she was like, hey, I need to go to the store, do you want to come with me? And I was like, sure. So I went to the store with her, and we ended up coming back from the store. I went into her apartment, we drank a bottle of rosé, we got drunk. We ended up talking. And that was my first like realization that like a friendship seed had planted in Zurich in a way that wasn't like my husband's coworkers. It's, that
Right.
distant, like I'm not getting attached. And then she was the one, like she was already friends with you guys and kind of opened that door for me to be introduced to you guys, which I was so thankful for, because from there it was like trivia nights. It was like you said, like the domino, what was it? Domino times 2.
Double
Double
dominoes.
domino. That was very Swiss of me just now.
Times 2.
2 times or whatever. Yeah.
Zweimal.
Zweimal.
True.
And I think by the time January hit, when Brian and I were really thinking about staying, it helped me feel like, okay, maybe we can lay a foundation here. Like maybe we can
have a life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also was like crazy that I was the only one out of the group that was there temporarily, and all of you were there for just like an indefinite period. That I was like, but wait, I feel like we're gonna miss out on so much if we leave now.
And now you're the last one standing.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy.
I know. So you moved from Zurich. I'm gonna get emotional. You're back in the States. Now that we have our friendship overseas, I want to talk about overseas friendships in general, because I feel like us being abroad in Zurich, it's a little bit different with like maintaining friendships back home. Like, for example, whatever friendships that I've maintained from home, like I know when I'm going to see those people again, like whenever I go to
True.
visit, right? I feel like you've lived in so many different places in the States that you kind of had that like a little bit of a different lens where, yes, I think when you went back to Charlotte, like where you're originally from, like that's where you're going to see a lot of your closest friends. But
Mm-hmm.
what things do you think you've done or your friends have done to help keep up with like a flourishing relationship as well? Because I really feel like it's dedication on both parts in
Yes.
terms of keeping up with each other and making sure you're like
Yes.
just as interested in each other's lives and like,
Yes.
making sure you're current on everything going on.
Honestly, I don't think the majority of my relationships could have been maintained without the help of social media.
Mm,
I think just being able to post things gives you a false sense. It's like, you know, watching TV and having a reel of like the reality show, you get like snippets of someone's life and then you feel a sense of understanding or relatability to someone. I feel that way with social media with stories. Like I can watch someone's stories and feel like I've seen snippets of their days and comment on or just like something and I have a lot of that back and forth on my stories. And I think I have since stories existed. I don't even know when stories came out, but
I don't know either.
I really started using Instagram when I moved to California in 2012. And I think that
Their
was
stories were not a thing in 2012.
no,
Yeah.
definitely not then. But even then, like you could comment and, you were posting more frequently in 2012. Not you, but like
Yeah.
the
No,
wider
in
Instagram
general,
user.
in all the different filters.
Yeah.
Such a good time on Instagram. I
Gosh.
loved
Oh
it.
my gosh, it was. No, that's just, there's so many negative things to be said about social media, but that has been so useful to me for friendships of keeping up with people and getting snippets of their lives. And then when we get together, it's not like, oh, tell me what you've been up to the last, like, I know. I'm like, oh, I saw your mom visited, like, and you went to this place with her
Yeah.
or I don't know, like anything. Like it's just so easy to have topics to discuss when you're together because you feel like you've been along the way with somebody in between. And I don't love when you see someone and it's like you're checking all these boxes of like, so how's this going? How's your job? Or there's some of that that's necessary and that I do like, but
Of course.
I think when you have the social media, you can kind of cut some of that and have like offshoots of conversations. And kind of surprised by that answer because I'm taking a break from Instagram right
You
now.
are on a social media break. So now you don't know what anything is going on in anyone's life. No, you do.
I know.
But I get that. Like that aspect of social media is so helpful.
But it also helps you like trim the fat in conversation because it's like, oh, I know the highlight reel, I know the big picture. So you can be like, oh, let me tell you about, like you can like really get into it. So I would say the number one hurdle, and I know you agree, in keeping up with friends is the time zones.
Yeah.
And that was the case when I was in California. Now I'm in Boulder and absolutely Zurich. Having voice notes is such a less pressure filled way to talk to somebody. And you can just send it when it's, good for you. And the person can listen when they're in the car or like putting their makeup on.
So for the listeners listening, Chelsea and I have utilized voice notes as our number one way to like really stay in touch and like up to date on everything in life. I don't even know how we started doing that. I feel like one of us did it once to like update and then we responded. But we send each other like, we call them pods because they're legit can be anywhere from like 10 to like 30 minutes.
Real.
But it's like once a week or whenever we get a chance. It's nice when you have friends overseas that understand the dynamic of I'm not near my phone all the time. I'm not always going to listen to this right away or even text you back right away or knowing that you're not available 24/7. But when it comes to like deeper friendships, it's so nice to have catch-up sessions, like those detailed catch-up sessions. Like I know with my closest friends, like we always, whether it's once a week, once a month, once a quarter, like we have that catch up session, like just to be able to be like, what's going on? How are you? You know, whatever. And I feel like when you and I evolved into like the pod catch ups, it was such an easy way for us to, we get to know what's going on in each other's lives in so much more of a detailed way. I think the only aspect is that like, you're hearing one side and you want to respond to like what this
That's true,
person is
yeah.
saying live, but that's just not the reality. As much as we pod, we would never be on the phone like once a week like that. Like we wouldn't
No.
have the time, you know, but then we wouldn't have level of detail.
Yes.
We'd probably be doing like the once a quarter or once a month maybe
Call
like call
or-
just to
yeah.
kind of, but there would, the amount of catch up that it would take for detail
I know.
there is no way we would still be that involved in each other's like everything. Like it's just such a nice way for us to also like vent about what's going on, or if you've had like a shitty week with your kid and you're just like having a tough mom week or a really good like business week, or you know, I'm redecorating my house, like these are some links, like tell me what you think. Or I don't know, I think our pods were just such a cute way for us to continue being as close as we were in Zurich.
That's
like
true.
without, I don't think we
Yes.
would be without that. Not that the feeling of closeness would still exist, but that actuality of closeness wouldn't.
The real time,
Yeah,
day-to-day closeness wouldn't have been possible. The initial response to somebody that doesn't do them is like, "Oh, well, there's no back and forth, you know, like there's no conversation." But I also think that you can get deeper and more intimate when there's no interruptions in conversation too. And
that's true too.
because oftentimes I'm just like rambling, and then I mean there's been pods where I come on and I'm like giggling about something, and then at the end like a subject comes up about my kid and I'm crying.
Yeah,
And then I'm like, oh,
I know.
talk to you next week. Like
These are like therapy sessions, like free therapy sessions. Like you just get to ramble, and on the receiving end, you feel so close. Like this is so nice that I have, like we have that space for each other to do that for each other. You know, like
yes.
I feel like whenever you do get emotional, I'm like, girl.
I know. I feel honored when you get emotional because I'm like, oh,
Yes.
she feels comfortable with me. And you said something of like the expectation too. I think that your expectations change when you are in a long distance friendship of like what that person can get, especially when you have a family and you're working. And it's just like you and I have had a mutual understanding that like you might send me a 30-minute voice note and you might not get one back for 10 days.
Yeah.
And like there's no check-in in between, or like, why haven't I heard from? It's just like you hear from me when you hear from me, and we'll give each other a nudge. This one was an important one, or listen to the next page, you know, but like
we'll send like a separate like 2-minute, like listen to this 2-minute, this one's more pressing.
Prioritize
like,
this one.
Yeah, that flexibility and understanding is, I think, necessary. When I first moved, and it was when we like decided to indefinitely be here, my best friend, like she did such a good job of like calling me once a week. Like even if our conversation was 10 minutes, it was just like hearing each other on the phone. What's going on? How are you? When you have all different types of close friendships, you have different ways of staying close like that. And I really thank the people like her who would like commit to calling me every week, because when you are the person who has moved away and you are like enthralled in all the adventure and you're just distracted and the time difference, and you're not giving the priority to where, not that you should or shouldn't be giving the priority to your friendships, but you really realize the people who are like, no, I'm gonna hold you down, like I'm gonna make sure we're staying connected, and it makes you feel missed. It makes you feel like this is a really important and special friendship too, like
and grounded
for sure
in your previous self. And
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. When it comes to maintaining friendships overseas, like it really does have to be a balancing act. It really takes both parties to like want to keep the friendship, to be making the calls, to be sending the texts, to be sending the pictures, to be sending the voice notes, or, you know, making priority time to just somehow keep up a little bit.
It's an investment and it is work, you
It
know. I
is.
feel like people don't talk about that. Like, we know that romantic relationships are work and give and take and compromise, but friendships are too.
Oh yeah.
And you have to put time and effort in, and not like it's a chore or a job, but it's just like
But it's a
a
relationship.
maintenance.
Like
Yeah.
it's equally as important as your relationship with your spouse. Like you need that, at least for me, and I know you feel similarly, like you need those support pillars, like the people around you, your support system, and like you need to give that effort to make sure that those pillars are still standing and they're, you know, they're still going and they're strong and everything. So yeah, I think living away, you definitely learn that quickly, like that you need to be present for the people who are far away.
I know. And then, or maybe a but, and I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but thinking of expectations too, is like not every relationship needs that either, you know. Like,
That's true.
it's sort of like, because I have friends that I don't communicate with at all, like I do with you, who I'm near and dear to, or near and dear to me, and I see them once a year when we're together, and it's just like everything clicks and it's wonderful and it's fine, and like if they needed something from me, I would be there in a second. And it's just like, it's not a one size fits all kind of thing, and it's not that one person is more special than the next, you know, but
it's like what works for that dynamic.
Yeah.
Like, I love a friend that if we haven't spoken in months, there's no weirdness. Like, there's no reason why we haven't spoken other than the fact that life has just gotten busy. Also, like, shout out to the friends that come to visit. Not that it's bad if you didn't come to visit, but it makes it feel special to also like share that piece of your life with the people who don't mind flying and don't mind going that far and, you know, all that kind of stuff. Even my best friend is like terrified of flying, and she came out our first year there, and I was so proud of her.
Oh,
it was so
special.
It was really, really special. It was nice. But I feel like we've had many guests come and stay with us, or, you know, even stay at hotels that were just like doing like touristy things with them. And I feel like it's really the first time, like the last 5 years, it's the first time in life I'm really seeing the dynamics behind, or the preferences behind, the way I like to host people, or the way I like to house guests, or the, you know, I appreciate certain types of you know, behaviors from guests over others. Or, you know, I know a lot of the people who have traveled to me, some of them weren't necessarily travelers who like needed the hand holding a little bit more, like what do we do, what do we go see, like that kind of stuff. Or there are people who are like, we're just using your apartment as like a leap pad, like we'll go to dinner a night or two, like that's it. Where I'm like, hey, that's cool with me too, like I love that. But having had so many different versions of guests, and all of them enjoyed in different capacities and ways, what do you think, or what are attributes that you think make a good guest?
I have so many opinions on this topic. I really do. Like, I feel like I don't want to make it. I really love hosting, and
you're a really great hostess.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you guys are great.
I really enjoy it because I love tailoring things we do and activities or where we eat to the people visiting. Like, I'm like, oh, I know this person will love this kind of ambiance or this sort of setting, and that's really fun for me to do that. I really like it when guests strike that balance of, okay, I want you to be our tour guide and show me the things that you know that I'll love to see, but that also, and I felt this way when you and Brian visited us in Colorado, that you had things you wanted to see and like boxes to check, but it was also like, we can spend an entire morning or half of the day at your house just chilling and catching up, and like we're here to see you also, like not just the place. Like this isn't just a substitute for a hotel or an Airbnb. It's like, oh, we want to like be in your home and see the place that you live the way that you live it, and
like getting the locals' perspective too.
Yes. And I think it can get difficult hosting, and if you haven't hosted a lot, it's just you don't have the perspective to see it. It's not that you're a rude person or you're a rude guest, but when you are staying in someone's home, it is not a vacation. It's not a vacation for you or the person hosting. Like you might be on vacation, but the person who's hosting, like they aren't Rick Steves. Like they live there. They're still living their life while having you in their home.
Right.
So
like they're working, their kids need to go to school, whatever. Like
yes. And it's hard. It can be easy to lose that perspective when you're on vacation, you're ready to spend money, you're ready to ball out. And I think it's nice when a guest has that perspective. And if you're staying 3 days, I'm ready to pull out the red carpet for you and cook the meals and do the fun things. But sort of after that, because if you're abroad, people do want to come for a week or 10 days or go somewhere else and come back. And that's, reasonable to want to do that. But I think after, if I'm being like a hosting etiquette expert, I think after the 3
She
days,
used to write a book on this.
I think that you need to take initiative after day 3, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna maybe ask for advice of some places to go, but I'll figure out how to get there and take a half day out, and I don't know, just take things into your own hands as the tourist and be, it's easy to be like, oh, I don't speak the language and you do, and you know the things, and like kind of overly lean on someone. But you also want to have that experience too of
kind of getting lost and figuring it out. And
if you're staying for like 7 to 10 days, like you need to give your host a little breathing room. Like maybe retire early after dinner to like your quarters, like one night if you're there for like 7 to 10 days, and like let the couple or family like have some like recharge time, like really catch up on just like logistical day-to-day things that like they haven't been able to do or discuss. Like I think that's for me is where like and maybe it's because of my personality, or I'm a projector, and I think I come off very social, and I am very social, and I love spending time with people, but I also need that recharge time and like to fully be present with you. And if I don't have that with you in my home like for 7 to 10 days, like I am just like drained, like
your battery's done.
Yes. And I've noticed that when I have guests that are like, oh, we're retiring early, or we're going to take a half day out and come back, like I feel that rechargement. I'm like, oh, why aren't they back yet? Or ready to have dinner. Like,
you're like, make me miss you. Like, I know you're here and I've missed you for so long, but make me miss you again. You know what? And also to add to what you were saying before about the taking initiative, about getting to know the local things or going out and not feeling, as a guest, like not feeling nervous or scared to go explore the area, is that also it takes a lot of time that maybe seasoned travelers are used to doing when it comes to researching. And like, we can give you easy recs because we're locals, sure, but also we're probably more seasoned in researching places to go and do things. But those also take time. Like it's admin, and that time is better spent on us, whatever, like recharging, like you said. And it's nice when the guests can kind of just, even if they have to ask, like, oh, where do you look for these things? It's like, oh, like go on Google Maps and then search like this. It's like helpful to have a guest that's willing to not just fully feel like you're the person steering the wheel the whole time, you know?
Oh my gosh. Yes. That reminds me too, is like my pet peeve with guests is when I'm like, okay, do you want Chinese, Mexican, or Italian tonight? Or, I list like 3 options because like I'm an options person. I don't want to tell you what we're going to do. I'm like, oh, we go here, here. And then the person's like, oh, wherever you want to go. And I'm like, that might sound nice, but that's actually very annoying as a host because I live here. So like, if you weren't here, I would be like doing my laundry or, going to my just like hole in the wall coffee shop. But it's like, you're here and I want you to have a good time. And like, I've chosen these places among other things we could do, but like have an opinion, I think is really a good thing to have as a guest, is like
Make
even
a
if
decision.
yeah,
Even if it's not like 100, but just be like, oh, Mexican, just to like help the host. Like, I want your input so I can make you happy. Like, don't just put it on me. Because typically as a host, especially if they're coming really from out of town, you're gonna already have spots that you're taking them to that you know you love. Like, I love this place for dinner, I love that place for coffee, like, I love here for shopping. So when those questions are pushed back on the guest, it's like that's their time to shine and like make that decision and help out.
I want to know what you think makes a good guest, or guest pet peeves too. I want to know that.
I think someone who's just definitely mindful, enjoy when a guest is like, oh, like if we're doing a cooking night, like who's in the kitchen, like conversating with me as I'm cooking, or whether you offer help or not, you're just like present. I like people who are present and not just on their phones the whole time, or just really acting like a guest to the point where it feels like I'm just a full servant.
Yes.
Like, I don't
point.
obviously, like, I don't need you like washing dishes and like cooking and doing the thing, but just kind of having that like immersive experience, like you really are like family that's here.
I think that's our turn down.
Oh, it's turn down service.
Because we need our snacks.
We do need our
water.
Snacks. Okay. Sorry guys, be right back. We're back. What else do I love about a guest? I agree with you on being thoughtful about just giving depending on how long you're staying with us, is like just giving us some space at a certain point, like take yourselves out to dinner, go enjoy. I also love it from like a travel perspective when whoever is visiting us, which this could also be like dependent on if you're coming by yourself or coming as a couple, like for you to enjoy this new place in a way where as if you didn't stay with friends, like enjoy it without us, because that's also a part of the experience. Like, and does that equally give us a little bit of a break for sure, but it's also just nice for them to see them enjoy, even if it's a restaurant recommendation that we give them or a museum recommendation that we've been to before, and they go and they have their own experience and they come back and talk about it. I love that because then I get to share in, I don't know, just the joy of it. Or if they go for a day trip somewhere, like I like that coming back and then like talking about like their highlights. And because I do love going on day trips with my guests, but it's also probably nice for them to explore it the way they would organically do it versus me being like, oh, I'm going to take you to Grindelwald and take you to Fierce and do like the way I would do the protocol kind of thing, which would obviously be a lot of fun. Maybe there's something you guys could teach us when you come back, like, oh, we tried this restaurant there that was really good and it's a place we hadn't been to or something. Like I like that.
That's how my mom and sister, they definitely went off on their own when they came to visit me a couple times, and would come back and be like, oh my gosh, we went to this cafe in the viaduct and like blah, 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 and like we noticed this thing, and it's like, oh, they might not have never noticed. Like, it's interesting to hear something that they organically notice, like they're like, oh,
without
this
you
stood
like
out to
pointing
me.
in them in the directions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's fun for me to be like, oh, like I don't notice those things because I live with it every day now. But yeah, like that is different. Or and
Yes.
then, I'm going to that cafe next time. And I do think as a tourist, it's important to stumble upon things.
Oh my
Like,
gosh, yes.
just like see something like our chocolate cake today. Like
Oh my
that
God, yes.
wasn't on our Google list.
Not at
And we
all.
just walked by and we're like, let's go in. And I think like unrelated to having guests, but kind of related is it's like, I think those opportunities, sometimes we forget that they're there because the internet tells us where we should go and what's worth seeing and like Google reviews. But I think as a traveler anywhere, we still need to stumble upon things.
I am huge on that. Like, I love exploring a city, if it's possible, on foot.
Mm-hmm.
And like, yes, have your like points of interest, like, oh, I know I want to go to that restaurant, or I know I want to go to that shop, but like be curious as you're walking around. Like, if a boutique sparks your interest, oh my God, this is a travel tip I would definitely tell people, because even that chocolate cake place today, like we end up going back to it. But
Yeah.
typically, if I'm somewhere and I'm like, oh, I want to go into that shop, if I don't go in that moment and we're touring around, I most likely won't go back.
Same.
Like,
Yeah.
it's not, because it becomes a lost thought because you get busy and you're like now on the other side of town. You're like, well, now I'm tired and we're supposed to go to the Airbnb for a little bit before dinner. I'm not going to make it back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I highly recommend that when you are exploring a city on foot and you see a boutique or you see something in the window you like, or a chocolate shop or whatever it is, like, to actually go inside in that moment. Just go. Like, just whatever's pulling you to it, it's happening for a reason. Maybe there's something you find. Maybe there's a conversation to be had. Maybe you go in and you're like, oh, this isn't really whatever that you thought it would be, and you leave. But I think there's an experience still to be had just by walking into it. Like, allow your curiosity just live be
Mm-hmm.
directing you to, you know?
Mm-hmm. Which I feel like you kind of allowed for that in the way you planned our day today, because we have some anchors in our
Yes.
day,
Mhm.
but they're in different neighborhoods and
Yeah.
there's time in between for us to wander. And I liked how today unfolded because
I
we
loved
had
today.
surprises
We
along
were
the
in
way.
really great neighborhoods with shops like that too. Like, being in Soho, Tribeca, West Village, like all of those areas just are filled with so many storefronts, so many different things, like cafes, and
Yeah.
yeah, I enjoyed our day today too. But pet peeves for guests, I don't know. Be aware enough
Yes.
to know, this isn't a pet peeve, it's just like a pointer, I guess. Just try to be aware enough to know, or try to be picking up on the host and hostess's feelings about something. Like, if they look
Yes.
overwhelmed, like, give them the break or ask them if they need help.
Or like, we were thinking of doing this today. Would you like to come? Or would it be a good opportunity
Ooh.
for you to like catch up on life? Like,
Yeah, that's good too.
Yeah.
Like, just being mindful. My mom, growing up, she was very adamant about being like, when you're over someone's house, like, you ask, clean the table and help with the dishes, and do, like, be like that mindful person. And I think the
yeah.
pet peeve that I'm trying to explain is just not being mindful of that, not being mindful that you are a guest, and that me as a hostess, I want you to be as comfortable as possible, but I also don't want to be taken advantage of.
Yes.
Just that kind of level.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I couldn't agree more. I feel so passionate
Yes.
about what you just said. And I just have one more pet peeve to add. Now
Oh,
that
okay, yes.
it's related to everything you just said. It's like, I want to feel like you are my guest and my friend, not my second child. Like, and
Yes.
that comes into play for me. This is a big pet peeve, is I'm like, I'll say, okay, like, we need to leave at 10 tomorrow, or, brunch is 30 minutes from here. And it's like, I've had guests that need me to tell them when they should be taking a shower, like, in order to be ready to leave the
Oh.
house. And I'm like, what? Like,
Like, you're a full adult.
you know what time we're leaving, so you can decide when you need a shower. Like, I don't know how long it takes you to get ready. Like, or, okay, like, get your shoes on. Like, I've had guests where I'm in that role, and like, you wouldn't do this at home. You wouldn't do this if we were in a shared Airbnb together. So it's just
Yes.
like, don't
do it here.
Yeah. I don't even know if people realize they're doing it. I don't know. Or maybe it's like something I'm doing. I don't know, but
Yeah.
that's one of my tops.
No, I can definitely see that being, especially because if you've planned something, you've already done the planning for that. I don't need to like handhold the rest.
Yes.
The rest of that.
Right. That's all.
But yeah, interesting. No, it's such an interesting topic because I feel like it's not something I really, when we were living in Jersey, we would have guests come over. I mean, we sometimes had people sleep over because obviously we're like more social and drinking back then, and like we didn't like people like drinking and driving and stuff, but it was just a different kind of sleepover. It's like a one-nighter. We didn't have, unless it was people coming from out of the country for like our wedding, which also was a completely different dynamic because we were so busy. I never really had like guests stay for like a week or a few days, like everyone lives in Jersey,
right,
or New York or whatever. So it's not really something I was that aware or became aware of, like that I had an opinion about until we moved.
And I just want to end it on a high note that like it is such an honor for people to visit and spend the money and take the time, and
yes,
it's just like really meaningful memories that you're getting to make. I mean, yeah, I've had friends that have visited me everywhere I've lived, and it's just so sweet and so bonding, and it's like what turns friends into family, and
the dedication is just so beautiful. Like I have friends who come to visit once, and then I have friends who come once a year that like just loved it and like want to keep coming back, and I'm like, I wonder if the tables were turned, like what kind of friend would I be? Like would I come out? I would definitely come out at least once, like I'm a travel head and like I want to see. But having that like those few people that are like that loyalty, like no, we're gonna come because we love it, blah blah blah. It's like, oh, you found something special here too. That like
Evie and Melly, they've come multiple times, and I'm sure they're like, oh, we want to go here. Like, and we love this place. Can we go back?
Exactly. Yeah. And like, oh, there's more to Switzerland. Like, let's see like this side of it, or come back a different time of year. Like we've been there in the winter. Let's come back in the summer and experience that. I love that. Like that to me is really special. But I know you've traveled a ton, like a ton. You've done, I know you and your husband took off a certain amount of time and like went and saw the world, and
we saw it.
You seen it. You seen it all. My question for you, which is my second question for a guest, is what is the country or city or place you went to that you realized like how much you love to travel?
So I think interestingly enough, it wasn't traveling abroad that gave me that itch. The itch. It's like a bacterial infection I got.
But it's true. What do they call it? The travel bug? Like exactly like that.
I was living in California. I'm originally an East Coaster.
Lit.
But I moved to San Francisco in 2012, which was an exciting time because it was sort of like one of the tech gold rush booms at the time. So there was like a lot of newness with the app, but we had so many weekenders and like day trips to whether it was Santa Cruz or Big Sur or Wine Country, and that was just like so new to me. All like everything in California, the way of life, the way of eating, the spirit of it. And it made me feel so alive. Like I just felt, there's no other way to put it. I just feel so alive when I'm traveling. And living, to me at that, it's crazy now because Zurich, it was such a bigger time difference, but the 3-hour time difference living in California felt like a different world to me based on how the cold. I still feel that way about California. It's like doesn't even like count as the US to me. And it just continued because we moved to San Diego, and it was more, and now it was like, okay, now we're like tripping all over SoCal, and there's something to do every weekend. And that's just where I got it, was that feeling of being alive and seeing something new and different culture and discovering a different part of me. For me, the traveling, it's more about how I'm feeling about me. I don't know, maybe that sounds like selfish, but it's when I
No.
travel, I feel like anything is possible. Like I'm seeing a different way that people live, that they think, the norms, the customs, and I'm like, oh, this is a possibility for me to bring back home and live this way, like, or think about things in this way, how people live. And I was actually thinking the other day that a new way, this is like expanding on your original question, but
No, I love it.
I think travel now to me, I'm also seeking a different feeling where it's I don't know, like when we visited my father-in-law in Saudi, when I visit an Arab culture, I feel more vulnerable because it's so different from my culture.
No, it's a huge contrast.
Yes, and I need to be more aware of how I behave and how I dress or things I say.
Right. Being respectful to the culture.
Yes.
Making sure you're like not, just disregarding, disobeying, making other people feel uncomfortable.
Yes. Yes. And I think that's a really healthy feeling, is to feel vulnerable and to be in someone else's environment where you have to think about honoring someone else's culture and being considerate. And I feel like I'm a considerate person, but you have to do that even further while feeling vulnerable somewhere else. I don't know why. I just think that's a really healthy feeling.
I think it is too, because it takes you out of your bubble of
Mhm.
reality and what you're, because you could say, right, like the Arab culture is drastic for us and like vice versa, like for them to come into like American standards and like regardless to which party's crossing over to see that travel journey or whatever, like the expansion is there, like it opens up your mind and you're like, wow, people do live so differently from me, like I need to not take certain things for granted, or maybe I need to, maybe something like you said before, like will enlighten me to want to bring that back home with me and like live more in that way. Or
yes, or when you're somewhere that you're so vulnerable and uncomfortable and people are still showing you so much kindness. Like I've experienced so much kindness and generosity in Arabic countries where clearly I'm not dressed in the way that like they would have their wife dress or their daughter, but they're treating me with such respect and giving me a lot of grace in their environment. And it just makes you like, you come back and you're just like, wow, like how do we like bark at people for not speaking English in America? And like just the way we as Americans expect people to bend to us both in our home and abroad is so crazy. And when you go somewhere that's so not America and people treat you so graciously, it's just you want other people to have that experience, that perspective, to bring that home, to be like, okay, how could I extend that to people in my own culture?
I totally
I know I
agree
just
with
made that sound utopian, but like
no, but it's true though. I feel, I think it's really easy if you, especially if you're coming from a privileged society or a first world country, just how, I don't know, how easy it is to become snobby because you're just so used to what everyday functioning is here, is like that you just assume across the board that everyone should conform and everyone should be making everyone else's lives easier in conforming versus like being more compassionate to the ones who haven't integrated yet or don't integrate, because this is a very diverse nation, you know?
yes. And I just want to say too, for people that are listening, because I don't think you have to go to the Middle East or Asia to have that experience. Like I think you can have that experience in your own country, maybe you're going to the Midwest and you're in a red state and you're
No, for sure.
seeing the way farmers live, or maybe it's like next time you go to Paris, like take the trains, like don't get an Uber or taxi, or go to do what the locals are doing, go grocery shopping, go to the checkout. Those are ways you can, I feel vulnerable in other places.
Yeah.
when I'm doing the things locals are doing with such ease and like they're doing it. And I'm just like, I think those are ways to feel vulnerable too.
I'll never forget. You're like, for some reason, when you said the supermarket, like, I'll never forget my first supermarket trip in Switzerland.
Tell me, which one was it? Cope or Me Girl?
It was Cope. It
Okay.
was at the Stadelhofen station, but like just the aspect of I went to, instead of the self-checkouts, which I now like exclusively only go to the self-checkouts, but like in the beginning I did go to the person, like to get rung up.
Oh,
And
yeah,
like
yeah.
the fight for time to bag your own shit before the next person is getting rung up was insane.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
even my New York conditioned self could not operate at a fast enough pace to feel like I wasn't in someone else's way.
Yes. Oh my God, the pressure. Or the first time you don't weigh your own and price your own produce.
Oh my God, that also happened in that same exact instance. I didn't know that that's what I needed to do. And the girl said something in German to me, like about whatever, I think it was like broccoli or something that I picked up, and like was like, "Where is the sticker?" And I was like, "What?" So she went and like weighed it for me. I was like, thank God she did that. But I was definitely, I think everyone on that line hated me that day. Like I was taking too
It
long.
humbles you.
It does. I feel like I also appreciate that about our friendship is that we love reality TV.
Mhm.
Certain
Yes.
reality TV is not
Yeah,
reality TV is
not
a
all.
big world. I guess it's more like Bravo specific, but
And I feel like we were unapologetically, shamelessly loving it before it was culturally more widely accepted. Like, I really believe in the last few years, people are more willing to admit that they watch Housewives and
absolutely
love it. And now that, you know, the Times writes about its cultural significance and like how it mirrors culture at the time. And it's almost a historical archive of things that were going on at a certain time and moment in culture. And now people are a bit more braggadocious about it, but we were unapologetic from the beginning.
In it. We were OGs. Bravo, did you hear that? We're OGs from the beginning. Andy, we are loyalists.
We were.
No, it's totally true. And you're right. There would be a stigma around that type of TV watching. Like there would always, like you felt like it was trash TV.
Yes. Or like you were wasting your time watching something like that. And
like people profile you. Like, oh, you watch that stuff?
Yes.
It's like, yeah, but like there is a depth to it. I think because a lot of people who do watch, specifically I'll say Bravo reality TV, are people who probably like to analyze people or judge people or try to find like a resonating story of like, I know what it's like to be in that person's shoes or whatever. Where I think people who don't like it, they're already like pre-assuming that they're not going to be entertained and it's stupid and like, which sometimes it is, like, don't get me wrong.
Yes.
But I don't think those people like are going to be open enough to be hearing what other people's problems are and like seeing that on the screen and like having a tolerance for it. And I also think it's funny because in the Bravo verse, oh my God, I'm like getting deep, but I only watch like specific franchises. Like there are certain locations, like I feel already a pull to certain locations because it's like, oh, I mean, like New Jersey, I'm from New Jersey, like I'll never not watch New Jersey, so like in New York, and you know, but like I didn't really like watch Atlanta and never watched the Dallas or the OC. Like there were just ones that I just didn't care to watch.
Yes, same.
Literally based on location, because I'm just like, oh, well, I'm not like interested in that area for some reason. Almost profiling yourself through the Bravo verse.
No, I get it. When the Housewives first started on Bravo, many of them were actually housewives. Like, and
that's true.
I don't mean to say just housewives. Obviously, you know, I don't think that's like a derogatory term, but now these women all have businesses and these side projects and are the breadwinners of their family.
That's so true.
And
I like seeing that. Also, that some of them aren't married now.
True. Yeah, like Brit.
Yeah. If it was only wives, I don't know how relatable it could stay. Because the reality is there's so many people who are single at all ages at this point. So it's like nice to have that mix.
I completely agree. way more entertaining that way too.
Definitely. Very grateful that you came to New York to meet me halfway. 'Cause
Yeah.
my pregnant ass could not get on another flight.
Yeah, I'm so glad we could make this work.
Me too. And I'm very happy you came onto the pod. I want to also know, I didn't even say this about our pods that we were talking about before, but I feel like us doing the voice notes back and forth, me listening to myself on those voice notes was like one of the
Catalyst.
yeah, like it enabled me to have the pings that I was getting about potentially wanting to do a podcast. I was like, well, first of all, my voice wasn't like this. I wasn't sick because I don't know how I'm going to feel when I listen to me being sick back. But like hearing myself on those voice notes, I was like, wait, like maybe I can do a podcast. Like maybe my voice can be really, maybe I can carry out a 30-minute conversation with myself and like, you know, have it be to a friend. And yeah, if our voice notes weren't a thing, I don't know if my creative outlet this year would have ended up being late checkout. Like it might have been something else, like blogging or newsletters or whatever.
Gosh, full circle moment.
A full circle
right here. I love that.
No, it's good. It's a good one. Thank you, Miss Chelsea.
Thanks for having me.
Love you dearly. Hope to have you back on at some point for much more bantering. For sure. Maybe in Zurich when I'm a really, really good guest at your house. Yes, please. Number one guest. All right, guys. I'll see you guys next week. And I hope everyone's having a great start to their new year because this is going to be the beginning of Jan that it comes out. So, ooh, future tripping. Be starting off the year right. All right, guys.